Lightship Security rounded off the Ottawa Business Journal's top 10 list of fastest growing companies after its revenue grew by more than 90% last year. In this episode of Techopia Live, we'll hear how the bootstrap startup has attracted tech giants as clients, and we'll explore the future potential of test automation software. Welcome to Techopia Live. I'm Sherry Ask with the Ottawa Business Journal. And joining me today is the co-founder of Lightship Security, Jason Lawler. Jason, welcome to Techopia Live, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Sherry.
So one of the things that we do on Techopia Live to help people out who may not be as familiar with the different startup companies that we feature is to ask them to give us an elevator pitch. So if you could tell us what Lightship Security is in about 30 seconds or less, or 60 seconds. You can have a minute.
Sure. So we're an accredited IT security laboratory. So in a nutshell, what we do is governments around the world want to make sure that they're deploying secure IT security products, firewalls, routers, switches, etc. So the federal government here in Canada and in the US accredits us, Lightship Security, to do that testing on their behalf, to certify products to make sure they're safe to be deployed in government networks. That's us in a nutshell.
Okay, and I know you were founded in 2015, that's about 6 years ago, but tell us a bit, what was the genesis of Lightship Security and what were those first few years like?
Yeah, so the genesis was historically in our business, a lot of the kind of testing we did was very manual, was very labor intensive, and it took a long time. So you can imagine with the speed of development today, we wanted to make sure that products were getting certified in a timely manner, and that wasn't the case back in sort of 2015 and before. So the genesis for the company was to say, hey, look, we think we have a different way to do this. We can disrupt the industry a little bit by bringing automation to bear. And so we saw with the kind of changing regulations, with how prescriptive the testing was getting for these standards, that we could create automation that would allow us to, our tagline is certify at the speed of development. So that's the goal we're working towards. And it's really allowed us to kind of change the dynamic, get involved with our clients way earlier in their development process to make sure that they're building in the requirements for certification, and that end users, governments, are getting certified products quicker and getting those deployed in their networks. So that was kind of the genesis. We just thought, hey, there's a better way to do this. We'd been in the industry a long time, and so we founded Lightship Security with that in mind.
Yeah, and you mentioned attracting clients, or getting those clients. What do you think it was specifically about Lightship Security that pulled them to you? Because you guys do work with some big players in tech.
We do. We punch above our weight, certainly. So we work with folks like Cisco and Dell and Fortinet and a number of other kind of leading publicly traded companies. And we're a relatively small Canadian company, so that's been really good to see that we've seen that kind of uptake over the past few years. So the reason they work with us versus some of our competition is because of our approach to get involved earlier and to be able to reduce risk for them. So we can use our test automation platform, which is called Greenlight, to do gap assessments, to get involved earlier in their development process and verify that the functionality they're implementing is going to meet the requirements of those standards. Because you can think about it as if a vendor wants to sell to a government, they have to go through this process. They have to certify their product, and in order to certify that product, they have to use an accredited lab like Lightship. So when they look at the comparison points, they look at us and say, hey, they can do it faster, they can do it with less risk, and they can do it in a more scalable way. And that was the reason we started taking customers away from some of our competition.
And you guys are one of 3 certified labs in Canada, correct?
That's correct. So the Communications Security Establishment and Standards Council of Canada accredit laboratories like us against various ISO standards to make sure that we've got the facilities, the credentials, and the capabilities and the experience to do this testing. So we are one of 3 accredited in Canada, and there's an additional 8 or 9 in the US. So across North America, there's about 11 of us.
Okay. And just so I'm understanding correctly, it's almost like an insurance policy or an insurance check, I guess, for these companies, in the sense that they're working on something. They want to make sure when they're done it's going to get approved. And so you guys are able to perform the checks to say, yes, you're going to meet these requirements.
Yeah, it becomes it's a procurement requirement for governments, right? So as to get on those procurement lists and to be able to be a purchasable product, you have to go through these certifications. So what used to happen is a vendor would send a product to a lab, the lab would start testing, they would find issues, they'd have to send it back to the developer, they'd lose development cycles, and you get into this kind of crazy churn of, fix, and keep going. So what we've been able to do with Greenlight and kind of our earlier approach is to really reduce that risk. So we can do all that front end work, make sure the client's ready to go. And by the time they do formal certification, we can be one and done, get those products deployed. So that's real. There's a real benefit to our clients in terms of, their revenue, getting market products to market faster, and reducing that development churn that used to happen in our industry.
Yeah. It's very cool. I want to come back to this in a minute, but before we do, I just want to take a moment, because we've been talking about how Lightship Security got to where it is, to hear from one of the sponsors of Techopia Live, TD. TD's relationship team is committed to your business. They take the time to understand your business and provide banking solutions that can help you achieve your business goals. A dedicated local team allows for deeper customer relationships and better service. They take the time to learn about your business and industry so they can react to changes in the marketplace and anticipate your business's evolving banking needs. Your relationship team can also connect you with other specialists at TD to help move your business forward. And once you're up and running, TD continues to actively manage your relationship, looking for ways to help you manage and grow your business. You can learn more at tdcommercialbanking.com. So Jason, back to Lightship and the services that it offers. The tech industry moves very fast. I want to almost say at the speed of light, like Lightship. But for you guys, given you almost have to be ahead of how the requirements are going to change in order to certify others. So how do you stay on top of that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So as part of part of our value add to our clients is they want us to be the experts in the standards, right? That's not their core business. So we're super involved in the industry. We're thought leaders in the industry in terms of driving automation for kind of the next generation of testing, how we're going to test at scale for new technologies like IoT, like medical devices, like autonomous vehicles. All of these things are coming down the pike in terms of regulatory environments and requirements, right? So our team is heavily involved in the different working groups and the industry standards and kind of participating so that we can stay ahead of the curve and make sure that we build those requirements into Greenlight and into our approach such that our clients know and aren't caught off guard by the evolution of these standards as they move forward.
And what is next for Lightship? I know you guys have had incredible growth, but you mentioned there's 8 or 9 competitors that do this in the US. What are you guys looking to do in the coming years?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So we've certainly been bulking up the Canadian operation over the past 5 years. We've grown a lot even through the pandemic, which we're particularly proud of. And then, of course, the next big step for us is U.S. expansion. So we did open an office in Austin, Texas, in 2019. The pandemic has slowed that down a little bit, but the goal there is to kind of ramp that up into the balance of 2021 and going into 2022. Probably about 80% of our clients are U.S. Companies. So we definitely need to have a point of presence there. And Austin made a lot of sense in terms of the tech scene, the work that we do with Dell, et cetera. So that's going to be kind of key to our continued growth, as well as looking at other geographic expansion, particularly Europe, because there are a lot of regulatory changes coming there that are tangential and complementary to what we do and the standards that we test to. So we feel like there's a large market opportunity there that we want to explore and eventually go after.
And I'm curious, just where, when you look at how many of the clients are in the US and you look at the potential in Europe, has being in Ottawa made a difference at all or influenced the company in any way, do you think?
Yeah, it's been really good for us, honestly, because we deal a lot with the government agencies that accredit us, so communication security establishment, et cetera. So having kind of a local point of presence there has been good. Obviously, the tech talent in Ottawa has been something that we've taken advantage of over the past several years to develop our software team and our testers. So that's been you know, benefiting from IRAP and from other kind of government programs, and just kind of being in that scene has been really good. So it's now with that foundation in place, we really want to kind of take that and move it to the US and expand there and create more of the same. Really is what we're looking to do.
And I did want to mention as well, you are working on a project with Field Effect, which is another Ottawa tech startup that we've actually featured here on Techopia Live. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so they do a lot in the space around infrastructure as a service, which is very complementary to what we do on the kind of test automation that we're building. So in conjunction with IRAP, we are building a joint technology that's going to be leveraged for testing mobile devices and mobile device management platforms that are available from the likes of Microsoft, VMware, BlackBerry, et cetera. Those are issues that are coming up from a government requirements point of view, and so in collaboration with Field Effect, whereby they would provide their infrastructure as a service capability layered with our Greenlight test automation capability, it's going to be a compelling offering to the market. We're about probably several months into the development there, and excited about the potential commercial applicability of that going forward.
Just hearing you talk about the kinds of things that you guys can work on, I can't imagine there's going to be any shortage of work, given how integrated technology is in our life. But I guess, what would you want people to know about the potential for test automation software and what you guys do?
Yeah, so think about it, going back those kind of years, 5, 6, 10 years ago, right? This was all manual. And so when you think about how fast technology is being developed right now, the certification of those technologies was always lagging by months or years in some cases, right? So if you're thinking about the requirement for third-party validation of technology is not going away, what needs to happen is we need to think about how are we going to test in the cloud, because that's where everything's migrating to. How are we going to test these emerging technologies? 5G in particular is one of interest. As we talked about IoT, those are nascent markets from a certification requirement point of view. So the only way we're going to tackle this in any way, shape, or form that's going to make any sense is through an automated approach that scales and that allows us to kind of test in not quite real time, but certainly on a continual basis, right? That's the holy grail in our industry, and that's what Lightship is kind of leading the charge on and trying to get there.
Very cool. Very cool. I can see why that would be an underdeveloped area, but something that would be hugely beneficial. Given that, I mean, big challenge. Is there anything you could think of that's holding you back?
Yeah, I think like many growing businesses here in Ottawa and around the country and in North America, access to talent. Well, Ottawa's great. Just being able to find the right people and get them onboarded. A lot of companies are growing, which is great for the Ottawa ecosystem, but it does create challenges for recruiting. So, we do have some advantages there in terms of the types of technology we deal with, really bleeding edge stuff. And so I think that excites folks. But that would be kind of an ongoing challenge, as well as, we're in a highly regulated environment. So making sure we stay ahead of the curve, keep all of those credentials in place, and, build the requisite foundational pieces both here in Ottawa, in Austin, and eventually in Europe. Those will be challenges going forward for us, but also kind of separate us from our competition. So it's one of those things we're looking forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. I think people will be really interested in the kind of work that you're doing. It's kind of the behind the scenes stuff that you don't see or think about when you're using technology, but it's also obviously so important, to getting it out there and up and running. So thank you for joining us on Techopia Live today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Sherry. Appreciate it.
Before we go, I just want to take a minute to thank our sponsors, without whom this show would not be possible. Number Crunch, offering virtualized CFO services for SaaS companies. Hurley Robertson, Hill & McDougall, a leader in business and tech law. TD Bank, with specialized programs for tech firms. the University of Ottawa Faculty of Engineering, creating the next generation of technical talent, and Stratford Managers, providing services to help you scale your tech venture. Techopia is not just a great show. We are also online with new articles daily at ovj.ca/Techopia. If you are on Facebook or Twitter, you can follow us. Our handle is at TechopiaOTT. If you are on YouTube, please subscribe, hit the like button, or you can leave a comment down below. And that is it for this episode of Techopia Live. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back soon with another episode of Techopia Live.